From the PEP Radio newsroom, this is the afternoon news for October 9th, 2025. These are the stories we are covering at this hour. Pope Leo XIV encouraged international news agencies on Thursday to stand firm as a bulwark against the ancient art of lying and manipulation, as he strongly backed a free, independent, and objective press. History's first American pope called for imprisoned journalists to be released and said the work of journalists must never be considered a crime. Rather, journalism is a right and a pillar upholding the edifices of our society that must be protected and defended, he said. If today we know what is happening in Gaza, Ukraine, and every other land bloodied by bombs, we largely owe it to them, Leo said of journalists. These extraordinary eyewitness accounts are the culmination of the daily efforts of countless people who work to ensure that information is not manipulated for ends that are contrary to truth and human dignity. In his 5 months as Pope, the Chicago-born Leo has spoken out strongly on the need to protect freedom of expression and the rights of journalists. In his first meeting with reporters right after his election, Leo called for the release of imprisoned journalists and affirmed the precious gift of free speech and the press. More recently, he insisted that journalism was not only an act of justice, but a duty of all those who long for a solid and participatory democracy. In a letter to a crusading Peruvian journalist repeatedly sued for her work, Leo affirmed the freedom of the press was an inalienable common good. On Thursday, he strongly encouraged news agencies amid a double crisis they are facing, with economic pressures threatening their survival and consumers increasingly unable to distinguish truth from lies. Turning to U.S. news, a frustrated lawmaker says that the lack of trust is making it harder to end the government shutdown. A president looking to seize power beyond the executive branch, a Congress controlled by Republican lawmakers unwilling to directly defy him, and a minority party looking for any way to fight back. The dynamic left Washington in a stalemate Thursday, the 9th day of the government shutdown, and lawmakers openly venting their frustration as they try to gain traction without the trust that is typically the foundation of any bipartisan deal. To have good faith conversations, you have to have trust. There's a real challenge of trust, said Representative Brad Schneider, chair of the new Democratic coalition, a pragmatic group of House Democrats. Democrats have insisted they can't take Trump at his word and therefore need more than a verbal commitment for any deal. Conflicts over spending had already been raging before the shutdown as the White House pushed to assert maximum power over congressionally approved budgets. The White House Budget Office had canceled scores of government contracts, including cutting out the legislative branch entirely with a $4.9 billion cut to foreign aid in August through a legally dubious process known as a pocket rescission. That enraged Democrats and disturbed some Republicans who criticized it as executive overreach. And in other news, Trump's deployment of the National Guard in Illinois faces legal scrutiny at a pivotal court hearing with a small number of troops already protecting federal property in the Chicago area. U.S. District Judge April Perry will hear arguments today over the state's request to block the deployment. An element of the 200 Texas Guard troops sent to Illinois started working in the Chicago area on Wednesday, according to a spokesperson for the U.S. Northern Command, who spoke to the Associated Press on condition of anonymity in order to discuss operation details not made public. The troops, along with about 300 from Illinois, arrived this week at a U.S. Army Reserve Center in Elwood, southwest of Chicago. All 500 troops are under the Northern Command and have been activated for 60 days. Out in Oregon, however, other Democrat-led states have joined a legal challenge of the Guard deployment in Portland. All 24 other states with a Democratic attorney general or governor have signed on to a court filing supporting California and Oregon's legal challenge to the Portland deployment. By calling forth troops when there is no invasion to repel, no rebellion to suppress, and when state and local law enforcement are fully able to execute the law. The filing with the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals says the president flouts the vision of our founders, undermines the rule of law, and sets a chilling precedent that puts the constitutional rights of all Americans at risk. And that's the news at this hour. If you are watching our news videos on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to our channel. PEP Radio is available on the Live 365 app, the PEP Radio page at paequality.com, Roku, and Alexa. Up next, we have the Meadville area weather forecast here on PEP Radio.